We've made it to Friday and a scrimmage is tomorrow, and we've saved this breakdown for last because honestly, it's a fun breakdown to do. It's Isheem Young, the transfer from Iowa State, and the breakdown with Corey Burton, the offensive coordinator from Hillwood High School in Nashville, Tennessee. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's talk about the breakdown show. Isheem Young, we're going to talk about that in just a second. I'm Stephen Willis. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Corey Burton, the offensive coordinator from Hillwood High School in Nashville, Tennessee. I do want to tell you before we get started about BetOnline. It's the fastest and easiest way to check on all your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for lines, odds, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. Major League Soccer, if you're interested in that as well. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, including live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Isheem Young is the guy we're talking about today, the transfer from Iowa State. As Corey called him, he's a walking targeting penalty. Potentially because he's so physical.
Yes. But these referees better start watching some tape on him and realize that he actually is a pretty clean player. I think, some of his hits where body parts just go flying, it looks like targeting, and some of them look pretty vicious, but most of them are legal. I think he's earned a few targetings, but most of his hits are legal. So that's the one thing, I guess, walking in and watching him play at Iowa State, you worry about, because like his first big play of the Big 12 championship 2 seasons ago was Isheem Young just decleating Bob Stoops' son and getting tossed for targeting. So, you have to worry about that with somebody so physical, but my God, you don't want to calm that down either. You want to play into that.
Yeah, and 2020 is where the most of the targeting problem was. He did clean that up a little bit in 2021. But we're talking about a guy with 109 total tackles, 3 interceptions, 5 passes defense, 1 fumble recovery, and 5 forced fumbles in 2 years. The former 2020 Big 12 co-defensive freshman of the year with Kari Coleman, who is also at Ole Miss.
Yep.
He's a really good, really physical player that is basically tailor-made for this scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what he played in with Matt Campbell at Iowa State. I mean, it's going to be very, very similar. I think you have a guy that can run downhill and can play some pass coverage as well. He's definitely a force to be reckoned with, pun intended there. He has a knack for forcing the ball, dislodging the ball. He's good in the pass breakups. He'll, because he's so physical, receivers don't necessarily concentrate on making the catch. They worry about if they're going to take a collision from him. He gets, he can cover, although it's not necessarily his forte. He's not a coverage safety. He's more of a run support hitting safety, but he can cover, and he's not going to be a liability. But, again, he can play near the box. He can play midfield safety. He can play kind of anything in between, and you can get kind of creative with a guy like that because you could stick him in the deep middle, run the other 2 safeties downhill, and he'd be just fine. You could put him in the middle, run him downhill, and the other, and nothing goes wrong with the rest of the coverage. You could do just about anything in between those 2 scenarios that I just saw. He's a very versatile player, and I really, really, really enjoyed watching him play when I was watching Iowa State play.
Yeah, he's a really good player, and, he pops off the screen. He's one of these guys. I always used to talk to you whenever
No, Steve, those are opponents' body parts popping off the screen when he hits them. Yes.
Yeah. But when I was at Rivals, I always used to tell you, it's like whenever we're going to shoot video of a high school player, the 5-star, the kid that is being recruited, the D1 player, if he's not automatically readily available, there's something wrong. That's a huge red flag.
You ought to know within the first few plays.
Yeah, and he's the guy that even in college, as soon as you cut the film on, he pops off immediately, even at Iowa State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and God Almighty, like, and I know it's a highlight reel, but like you can just tell sometimes with these guys with the highlight reel, you're just like, good Lord, man. Like, and then you cut on the game film and it matches, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is dude. And Isheem Young is one of the. I mean, you don't become, co-freshman of the year in the Big 12 by being average, but and I know it's a defense optional conference, but you play on the that team had the best defense in the league that year. It's like the 2 Baylor guys that got drafted. I mean, those guys are special dudes. It's kind of a similar situation, but. I really like this player. I think I just, with Ole Miss's defense in general, with all the guys that we've talked about this week, I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see how creative they get now, because you've got so many guys that are versatile and can do some things. They're the same player, but they're not. Like you can put guys in different spots, like the 6 safeties that we named in the last episode. With Reese and Young and Tennyson and, the other guys that you named, those guys are very, very similar, which is good, but they all have slightly different skill sets that allows you to place them in different spots in the defense and allows those guys to get all relevant experience in different roles, in different coverages that will help them at the next level, or that will help give them a chance to be evaluated to play at the next level.
Yeah, and as far as the Ole Miss defense goes, whenever they can do that, you can't say, oh, this guy is on the field side hash mark. The Ole Miss is probably playing this defense, because their versatility allows them to line up in any particular defense.
Yeah, I mean, the scheme allows a mixture, so many coverages, so many combos you can do, and you can send so many guys downhill and run support. I mean, the opportunities are endless back there.
Yeah, and everybody's concerned about teams playing murder ball like Alabama did against Ole Miss last year. There's not many teams that can do that this year. Auburn might try, but I don't know if they will under Brian Harsin. Alabama
they
does
might
not
try.
have.
They might be successful a little bit with Tank Bigsby, but even then, like the beautiful thing about this set is, like, when Iowa State beat Oklahoma 2 years ago in Norman, they condensed those tackles down to 3 techniques, and Oklahoma could not run inside. They had some freaking grown men inside. And you put grown men in the B gaps, and then you put a mountain in the middle to kind of take up sort of both A gaps, and you have your backside linebacker scrap A to B to C. You ain't running inside. That defense is built to funnel things to the C gap and let the athletes go to work.
Yeah, and those players, this defense, a whole bunch of players that fit the same profile on this defense. It's really something to see. I mean, the talent infusion that Lane Kiffin has done in 2 years. He's been here 2 seasons. He's coached 2 seasons. Beyond impressive, Corey.
I mean, these guys, in a nutshell, to sum up this week of breakdowns, these defensive guys are built to stop the edge runs and to stop the RPOs. Like, you got guys that play downhill so fast that it's going to be hard to run RPOs. They're going to get misreads, misfires, and you got guys that can make interceptions. You got guys that can hammer down on the run. You've got, versatile guys that are learning that you can be kind of creative with. Hopefully, Kari Coleman figures it out. You got Isheem Young, who can play all over the place. I don't know that Isheem Young is gonna cover, what's his name that at Tennessee 1-on-1, Cedric Tillman. I don't think they're gonna cover Cedric Tillman 1-on-1, but I don't think they're gonna ask him to do that. It's crazy to think that Ole Miss's defense 2 seasons ago, we were making fun of how it was defense optional, right? How it was like, how it was like Oprah. You get a touchdown, you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown. But, it's definitely not like that anymore. And they're making all the right moves. They made a great scheme fit. They've got guys now in the transfer portal that fit this scheme and can help you play against what teams like Alabama and Georgia do so well, RPO.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, we always used to talk about the Big 12 being a defense optional league. Now, Baylor's in there, Oklahoma State making strides, Iowa State. They've kind of figured out how to stop these spread offenses.
TCU for a little while, yeah. I mean, it's getting to be a more defensive conference. So, I mean,
probably more so than us.
Probably so.
You take away Georgia and Bama, it's like,
our league is so explosive on the offensive side of the ball too. I mean, it's all kind of relative, right?
Yeah.
I think the offenses are slowing down and the defenses are improving in the Big 12. You'll see that kind of even out. I think the defenses were way ahead of the offenses in the SEC, and now that's kind of tipping back the other way, and you'll see that kind of even out now too. And you'll see some 9-6 games, and you'll see some 52-48 games, and you'll see some things in between. But I'm just, when you look at this Ole Miss defense, you're just amazed at what they were able to build. And I can't wait to see it play out on the field.
Yeah. The only question I think that Ole Miss has is all these new players meshing together. Yeah.
Yeah, chemistry. That's the only thing. Chemistry. Mm-hmm. Can they communicate in such a short time? Can they get the calls down? Can they trust that person is going to be there? Can Isheem Young trust that he can do his job with Tennyson? Can he trust that? Can he look over at Otis Reese and know that Otis is going to be in his coverage responsibility and Isheem can do his thing? Do they have those are the questions. It's not, can these guys do it? It's, can these guys play together as a team?
Yeah, exactly. Corey Burton, offensive coordinator from Hillwood High School in Nashville, Tennessee. Nice enough to join us in this breakdown segment. Thank you very much, Corey, for this. And, man, have a good one, bub.
Yeah, y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy.